in. I'm glad to have you with us, man. Glad to have you with us. You guys in, man. Come on in. Definitely glad to have you with us. If you're chiming in, I appreciate it. We well, for this next 4 weeks, man, we tapping into the book by Dr. Carl Branker called Manage. If you're rocking with us on the book club, man, I encourage you pick up your copy. It's a pretty fairly thin book, but it's quite interesting, man. He tells his personal story from a man's managed perspective, and we're gonna unpack that a little this morning about what it is to man manage. If you got your book, man, listen, DM me, let me know you got your book. Drop in the chat. What some of the biggest takeaways if you started reading? We're going to be hitting a few chapters this month. First chapter we hitting is integrity. Next week we'll be talking discipline. Third week we'll be talking purpose driven, and fourth week we'll be talking success principles for life. This is a simple, short book, man. Short chapters to read. I think they're pretty interesting and fun. Nothing too strenuous when it comes to reading, right? Because I don't know if you like me, I pick up a book and I fall asleep sometimes. And then I got to reread where I left off because I probably done lost my place or forgot what I was reading. The very essence of why I do what I do, man, is just to empower men to do some things maybe they might feel challenged with or would want to do but haven't started doing. You know, I remember this place for myself when I'm sitting on my back porch trying to figure life out. And when I started navigating this space, the one thing I started doing was reading. I just realized there were some things about life I didn't know. And if I wanted to know, well, the best way I thought to do it at that time was to pick up a book and read. You can always go back to school. You can always get around some guys or mentorship and learn. But what panned out for me was reading two things. One is the Bible. Get hold of what God has to say about you to you, because that's a phenomenal start. That's a great starting place. But then find a book or two that captivates your interest. And one of the first books I read in this place for navigating this space for myself personally was the book by Mark Batterson, Chase a Lion. Guys, I got to admit, that book was an eye-opener for me. And I've been reading ever since. I've picked up a book ever since. I think my wife is like, bruh, you got to resell some of these books. I got a little small, I can almost be a small used bookstore on personal development and leadership and faith and things of that nature, spiritual growth. I can be a small little bookstore. Now, you ain't going to get no fantasy books out me. Yeah, you might get a couple autobiographies, but most of what I read is personal development, leadership, and spiritual growth. And so that's what's in my heart, man. That's what's in my heart to really get better as an individual, as a person. And I think I was in this place for a long time, stagnant. And I think we're stagnant because we're not growing. We're not actively doing anything. And I'm not talking about busy work. We can be busy and still be doing nothing, right? And so this place for me of reading and being intentional about where I want to go in life, being intentional what life should look like for me, it started by picking up a book. Dr. Carl Branker, Man Manage. He says, becoming a man is one of the most important challenges in life. Of all his aspirations, dreams, and goals, how a man handles his responsibilities entrusted to him by his creator will determine his manhood and the life he lives. So good, so good, so good. So we're going to pick this thing up, man. And I love this. It opens up with a quote from Dr. Branker. And it reads, a man's integrity lives within and without. When he's honest, sincere, truthful, he's already bound to his morality and his values deep within. This is who he is, and others will observe, regard, and commend him for those values. Everyone is looking for someone who is trustworthy and self-disciplined and truthful. So true. We often hear this statement that people are looking for leaders to show up and do what they say they're going to do, right? And this place of integrity, man, and being honest and being truthful is a powerful place for a lot of men, because I think sometimes we hide behind, or we try to hide our flaws. And sometimes I think this place of being honest and being truthful is being able to be authentically who you are, even in the midst of um, not being the best at it, It's this place of values where he talks about, for me, deep values. And I often share that this place of growth, and identity, and then developing into what you desire to be, it requires, not only intentionality. What's your values for life? What leads you? What guides you? What leads you and what guides you? And so I really like this thing where he talks about values. He also goes into the book, man, and he shares, he points out a story with David as a youth, and he kind of correlates this story back to his own youth, not not directly, but just from a man managed perspective, right? And so when he talks about David, he talks about the responsibilities that David had as a young man, as a youth, as a shepherd boy. And some facts he pointed out, it really leads us into this place of what it means to man manage. When he talks about man manage, he says David had to man manage himself. In this place of being to man manage, it means managing your life. It means overcoming obstacles along the way. It means becoming a better and stronger person with every new challenge. You get better with every new challenge. This is managing who we are. How do we become? What's our values? What become important to us? And for David, he talks about as a young lad, his heart, or the way he managed, was learning how to be an effective shepherd. He was a protector of the sheep. He protected the sheep from wild animals. He at some point even had to risk his own life. This is a place of being able to manage yourself, overcoming life obstacles. You know, David faced some things as a young child. He points out here about how he learned to defend and protect himself as a young boy, how he had to learn to hunt, how he had used his skills to make a slingshot, to make instruments. He talked about how people viewed David as a mischievous young man, so much so that we see in every aspect of David's life, when he fought the bear, when he fought the lion, there was some values that he adhered to. There were some areas in his life that he was learning to manage. It was areas in his life he was learning to get better. So much so that when he went to go take some bread and cheese to his brothers, he was the one who stood for Israel against Goliath. But it wasn't always hunky dory for David. One thing that Dr. Branker points out is, one, we never hear a story about who his mother was. And secondly, when his father, he never considered David when Samuel asked him to bring his sons in. David was out shepherding the flock, and his father brought in all the other brothers, but didn't even think twice about David. Sometimes in life, man, you go through these challenges in life where you feel overlooked. You know, you feel undervalued, right? But David wasn't the type of young man to seem to really allow that to affect him. He seemed to have had a relationship and understood who he was as a young man. And this place of integrity, this place of finding sincerity about how we desire to live. I think you see this in the life of David. Here is something that Dr. Branker points out that was pretty interesting to me, where he said, "It doesn't matter whether your father or mother is not present nor impactful in your life. You are gifted. You're wonderfully created and set to lead and live life successfully." Such a powerful statement. I think so many of, particularly our young men, get fixated on, and when you think about it, not having a father around. That's probably one of our number one excuses, right? We didn't have a dad around. One of my most one of the recent stories I recently shared was a talk that I did on being the intentional dad, and the mere fact that I didn't know my biological father and the effect it had on me. And when I look back today, I see its effect. I see how it affected me then, but didn't realize how it was affecting me in the moment. And some of our young men, if I can, and I'm sure a lot of guys can relate to this, growing up without a father. A lot of the young men that I grew up with, their fathers were probably in prison. A lot of young men I grew up with, their dads worked 12, 14 hours a day. So they wasn't often home. They would leave early in the wee hours of the morning and return back before bedtime. And so there's this disconnect. Think about the divorce rate and how families have been broken, and kids grew up with their mom. I was one of those guys who grew up with my mom. But yeah, trying to manage this space and not believing that, well, because I don't have a father figure or because my mother wasn't around, I can never be who I desire to be in life. And I think that's one of those tricks that the enemy try to play on our minds that keep us stagnant and stuck. Dr. Branker goes on and says, and I love this because I hear this quite often, and that is, no one owes you anything. You owe yourself everything. This place about managing your life is about overcoming obstacles along the way. It's about becoming better and stronger with every new challenge. And I think that's what we see in this story of David. He became better through life challenges. So this place of integrity, man, this place of integrity is powerful. We're going to chop this up and talk a little bit more about and bring insight to Dr. Branker's book, where we're going to dive into this chapter on integrity, the core principles that serve foundation for effective leadership and personal growth. You know, those are my two favorite topics. Dr. Branker emphasizes the importance of integrity in all aspects of life. And by exploring this chapter here, we want to understand how integrity shapes our decisions, our interactions, as well as our overall character. So what is integrity? How do we view integrity? Integrity is the quality of being honest and having strong moral principles. It's about doing the right thing, even when no one's watching. For men in leadership, integrity is crucial as it builds trust. It fosters respect. It sets positive examples for others to follow. Leaders who manage with integrity are consistent in their actions. They're transparent in their ways they communicate, and they're accountable for their decisions. They create an environment where ethical behavior is valued and upheld, leading to long-term success and more meaningful relationships. And I love this because Dr. Branker talks about getting his first job and some of the challenges of getting it and some of the rewards, right? And one thing that he had taken from, he shares this story pretty delightfully, is that he got his first check. And he was so excited about that first check. And one of the principles that his dad had taught him was, hey, listen, always take something back and give to your mom, give back to your mom, you know. And that was a principle he stated in the book that he practiced regularly. That became a habit for him. And he talked about how his responsibilities kicked in for him. He began to, it sounds so simple, right? It sounds so simple, but it's so powerful. And that is, he would buy his own toothbrush. He would buy his own toothpaste. He will buy his own soap. I'm just curious, how many of our kids go buy their own toothpaste soap today? No. Just think about that. Kids get a little change in their pocket. They ran down the street to go get them J's on their feet, right? They went to go get a new blouse or a new hat, whatever the case may be. They hadn't thought about this place of man managing. And I think when you think about man managing, it's this place where we understand that, hey, I am moving into a new realm or level in life. And I think our young men need men to help them manage their lives. How many fathers or dads neglect teaching their kids the responsibility to pay their bills, to pay their tithes, to give to mom, support their mom in some kind of way? But I think those are important. Those are important attributes for a man. It helps him build up his integrity. Think about that. It helps him find the things that he value. And one of those things he may even value is being authentically him, being trustworthy, being truthful, respecting and honoring others. Some of the examples that we hear here, and this is what you kind of see in this first chapter where Dr. Branker breaks down and talks about integrity and how it kind of plays back to the role of David and the role that his dad played in his life and the practices that he implemented to manage his own life. I think that's powerful, right? I do. And so I want to give you guys a few questions to kind of consider and ponder as we get ready to close this thing out. Here's Dr. Branker says this: it's time to encourage your sons to manage, and every son to become a decision maker to live a better life. So here's some questions I want you to jot down and ask yourself when you think about this space of man managing. He says that more young men today without a father at home to teach and train basic manhood principles. Such a true statement, man. And so here's some questions, guys. I want you to just jot down and ask yourself and answer them, man. Take a look, just thought-provoking questions to navigate this space of man managing. Also, I want to encourage you, check out the podcast on the intentional dad. So here's question number one. How do you define integrity in your personal and professional life? And how does that definition guide your daily actions? I think that's a powerful question. I think it's so important for us as men to identify what we value, right? Number two, can you recall a situation where your integrity was tested? And how did you respond? And what did you learn from that experience? I believe every man has been down this lane where we had to make a decision that let me say it this way: we had to make a value-based decision, and we had to stand on integrity. Number three, how do you ensure transparency and honesty in your communication with your family, friends, and colleagues? Yeah. How do you ensure transparency and honesty in communication with your family, friends, and colleagues? I think communication is key. Having open, honest, transparent communication is important. Not always easy, but I think with practice over time, you get better. I just keep it 100, man. I sit with a lot of guys, and we say one thing, but we do another. You ever noticed? You ever been in conversation, you heard him say one thing, but then his action showed up a little different? We're not communicating effectively. And needless to say, the value is not attached. In this place of integrity, I think this is why these questions are important, because it gives us something to think about, right? How am I showing up? And am I leading with my value? I think when we read this first chapter, in introductory about David and Dr. Branker, you can kind of see that they begin to lead with their integrity. Number 4, what system or practices do you have in place to hold yourself accountable for your actions and decisions? What systems or practices do you have in place that hold yourself accountable for your actions as well as your decisions? We got to have accountability for what we do or don't do, you know. And then lastly, number 5, in what ways do you mentor or influence others to prioritize integrity in their own lives or within their leadership roles? Those 5 little questions, man. Sit with them today, man, or over the weekend or sometime this week, man, and ask yourself these questions and see what comes to mind. Listen, we're going to follow up next week in Dr. Branker's book, Man Manage. We're going to follow up on the chapter of discipline. I want to encourage you, man, don't miss an opportunity to grow yourself. Connect with us each and every week for Dwayne's Book Club. Thank you for taking time and rocking with us. Have a phenomenal day with purpose. God bless.